What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another Epic 7 video. The Overlord Collab is less than a week away, so we have some very important things to talk about. First off, we will definitely cover in just a second here the ranking system for which characters I think you should pull, how many copies, the artifacts. We'll talk about all of that here in just a second, but there's something very important I want to discuss, so please don't skip ahead just yet, and that is the state of collaborations and Epic 7 in general. So number one, guys, go ahead and check how is y'all's bookmark situation looking. I know most of you guys are free to play that will be watching this video, so I'll be catering most advice to you guys and why it's so important right now. If you guys can see here, I have 218 bookmarks, but quite a few sky stones, okay? And on top of that, I'm going to convert the rest of my gold into shop refreshing as well. If you guys don't know what that is, you should know this by now, but this is still the best method to convert your sky stones, as long as you have gold, into those bookmarks, okay? And you're going to want as many as possible because of the stuff we're going to talk about today, multiple copies, artifacts, and all of that. And the reason it's so important to have all of these resources right now is because collaborations at an Epic 7, at least how I'm going to view things, at least what I'm predicting, and I think it's true, collabs in Epic 7 are about to change forever, or they already have changed forever, meaning if you guys miss out on this year's Overlord, the Overlord that's happening in a week, it may never come back. Now, Overlord, I'm not sure. Maybe if it's super successful, Smilegate will return again next year. But we already saw with Espa, with things like Full Metal Alchemist, and possibly even the other collaborations like Guilty Gear, maybe just because it's ran so much, so many times. But now I think we are in a state of Epic 7 where collabs are not guaranteed to return, meaning limited characters, limited collaboration characters are true to their name. They're limited. So if you miss out, you might be out of luck, okay? Now, as we saw with things like Karina and Rocket Punch and how dang important those are, you don't want to miss out. And there's a lot of similarities between Karina, Rocket Punch, and units like Albedo and her artifact. All right, so I want to make that very clear. Do not spend any Sky Stones on Epic Pass right now. I know you might miss out on a few things like this. The Expedition, hopefully you guys didn't spend too many on that pass as well. If you're free to play, stockpile every bit of Sky Stones, every bit of gold, and you want to just make sure you get this collab first and foremost before anything else, just in case this doesn't get run again next year, because we're already seeing a precedence where collabs no longer return. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the juicy Overlord characters. Alrighty, y'all. First up, let's talk about Ainz. Let's just briefly talk about all the characters just as a recap, and then we'll discuss and rank them, how many artifacts, imprints, and all that stuff here. First off, though, just to quickly cover him, you don't need to worry too much about this, guys. As long as you are participating in the event, you will be able to triple S both Ainz and his artifact. It's already been confirmed, and if this is your first collaboration, you'll probably just have to do some side stories, spend some energy, and get multiple copies of him and his artifact, okay? So make sure you hustle. They usually make it very, very, what do you call it, free-to-play friendly, even for newer players, so don't sweat anything like that. As long as you play the game and then do the story event, all that stuff, you will be able to get all your Ainz's and all your copies of his artifact on top of that. One quick note, though, as I was discussing, guys, reviewing more of his stuff and just discussing how, you know, excited most of us are for the Overlord characters, Ainz, I know a lot of people are hyped for, especially in things like Guild Wars, things like that, treating him like a unit that's just going to knock units down one by one as long as you protect him. I think it was confirmed, though, guys, that the on his passive, this is actually him taking more light damage. It was kind of maybe something Smilegate wanted to introduce because he's free, or because it's more lore friendly to his role as, you know, the undead. However, I think in testing, in like damage calculations, he's going to be surprisingly tanky. So as long as you bring enough mitigation and things like that, the fact that he doesn't need any stats elsewhere other than survivability, maybe some effectiveness and FRES, I think you will be able to survive some very dangerous light units, possibly even things like Little Queen Charlotte and Aiden, if you have the maximum amount of mitigation and support. But realistically, you shouldn't be bringing him into those matchups. Now, the other big thing to watch out in his kit is really just on the skill 3. Let's go and hover over to it real fast. Where do we got it here? The goal of all life is death. This thing can be 15%ed. There is no ignore effect resist, so just be aware, guys. Unlike some other units where if you have souls, you can guarantee that goes off without a hitch, without any RNG, this will unfortunately be 15%ed here and there, and it doesn't have extinction on top of that. So other than that, though, guys, I think Ainz will be a very fun unit. A free ML5 the first time in Epic 7 history is amazing. And on top of that, I don't think he's going to be as weak as a lot of other free characters. And who knows, maybe he'll get a buff later on. Or maybe he'll just be strong straight out of the box and he won't need anything. But I'm very excited. Just make sure you spend your energy and get this guy maxed out. All right, let's talk about the important units, the ones you're going to be needing to save your bookmarks.
All right, guys,
I might surprise some of y'all, but let's talk about Shalltear first, and I'm actually going to rank her higher than Albedo. So for the units, remember, I'm going to separate the units and the artifacts, and you also want to take note of their release order, okay? Albedo will come first, and Shalltear will come second, and I'm going to tie in some recommendations for you guys because of that. But in terms of units alone, I want to talk about Shalltear first because I think pound for pound, just power level wise, if you're not invested in the lore, the looks, anything like that, I think Shalltear is going to be the best pick for most of you guys watching. Not just for like PvE, but just in general for PvP. On top of that too, especially, I think she's just going to be a more straightforward unit. Her kit is super cohesive, and it's just going to almost play itself. So let's go ahead and talk about the strengths. But first off, in terms of imprints, Shalltear has the very coveted crit chance imprint. So Shalltear will be coming second. You want to talk about, you want to make sure you pull at least one copy of Albedo. Remember, guys, I talked about in the beginning, collabs are a little bit crazy right now for Epic 7, so you want to make sure you don't miss out on anything. Have at least one copy of everything in the collab. But I'm going to talk about imprints right now, and Albedo's artifact I think will be better or edge out Shalltear's artifact, okay? I know it's a lot, but I'll recap it over at the end in case you guys are confused. But let's go back to Shalltear's imprint herself, her hero imprint here. She will be getting crit chance, so make sure, if you guys can, there's a big bonus for getting the very first imprint, and crit chance is so dang good, especially on a unit like Shalltear who does need crit. Try to either slate, or if you have extra bookmarks after Albedo's banner, you can try to get one extra copy for those of you that are free to play. Those of you that are wailing out, go ahead and max that out because crit chance is so good. Now let's talk about why Shalltear takes my #1 pick in terms of heroes, and that is because she is just a straightforward damage dealer that's going to answer a lot of the field, and like I said, is so cohesive, so simple to use, will almost play itself. Her skill 2 passive has everything neatly tied into one: mitigation, survivability via the damage reduction plus the stealth, and then of course she will have a self attack up. Now it won't, there are conditions to this, and things that might happen where this passive will not activate everything, but in general this thing is just so good. True Vampire just has everything neatly tied and is going to just be very simple to use and super effective. It also ties very synergistically with her S3, the Purifying Javelin. Because she has attack up, she will ignore effect resist, meaning anything that has buffs, especially those units that have evasion buffs as well, you're going to be able to strip that or ignore the effect resist of it while you dispel, and then hit them with that 100% hit chance like it didn't even matter anyways. But any of their buffs, regardless of what they are going to be stripped, and you're just going to destroy them with a Purifying Javelin, right? So the attack up will be able to strip everything as long as you're choosing the right targets. She should be higher attack than most enemies you're going to be fighting, and she had a 100% hit chance anyway. So scratch that evasion buff I was talking about, but any defensive, any buffs at all, right, are going to be stripped from Purifying Javelin. So survivability, a great unit, skill 3 damage dealing ability that's going to hit even evasion and annoying units like Aiden. This is just super strong here. And then the thing that kind of, the coup de grace that ties it all together, skill 1, right? A lot of squishy, or I shouldn't say squishy, but a lot of these damage dealing units like Shalltear sometimes get traded off later on, right? They'll kill a unit early, but later they'll get out bruised by kind of the tankier units that they won't be able to finish off because they, you know, they gassed out. However, Shalltear has injury in her kit, meaning she has a very wide range of units that she can actually kind of handle. I'm not going to say she's going to be able to kill everything, but the fact that she has injuries in general is going to make her a lot more effective. Even after she one-shots that squishy evasion unit, then she'll be able to kind of deal at least harm to some of those tanky bruiser units that usually counter these styles of units. So I really like this kit. I think it's just going to be very effective, very simple, like I keep saying. And for those reasons, Shalltear will be my #1 pick, okay? Now remember, her banner is second. So crit chance imprint. And let's quickly talk about her artifact, Pipette Lance. This is very good. It's going to be very good for her. Those of you that don't even want to think, you can just slap this on and it's going to be amazing. So make sure you pick up at least one with powder, maybe multiples if you get lucky when you go for those crit chance imprints. But I want to make sure you guys get that Albedo artifact first, and then you can save the rest of your bookmarks for all the extra Shalltear artifacts and copies that you might want to pull on top of that, okay? So with that being said, Shalltear #1, however, her artifact Pipette Lance, I think Albedo's will have a slight edge, and we'll talk more about that right now. Next up, we have Albedo. Okay, the Earth Knight, and this character, like I mentioned, I think Shalltear will take priority in terms of heroes. However, when we get to the artifact section, pay attention because I think her artifact could be a huge game changer and might be the most important artifact of the bunch. So Albedo herself, let's go ahead and talk about her kit real quickly. She is just a typical mitigation knight. However, I do think she will potentially have a splash. I have some guildmates that are very, very excited, or at least hopeful, that she will have some uses, because on paper initially, I know a lot of players, not just myself and everyone watching, there's a lot of players that don't think her kit was that impressive, all things considered. However, if we looked at it all together, I think she might be able to answer a niche role, and it's not even that niche with how powerful, aggressive, and cleave comps can be. I think she could have a very, very strong position in the current meta. It really depends on the multipliers. I'm not sure if they're out yet, but once you guys see those, maybe we'll be able to tell. But of course, as always, we want to make sure she comes out officially next week so we can test her in general, and she'll be available at the end of the season of RTA. Shalltear will not, okay? So take note of that as well. You will be able to play her in RTA, but not Shalltear, because she comes out a week earlier. Now, her kit, right? She has a, just like her counterparts, her fellow Overlord characters, she does have a Dispel. She has a decreased defense, but mostly she'll be HP scaling damage. And additionally, she has kind of like some counterplay with her skill 2, where she summons her mount. She has some mitigation, like I mentioned, being a mitigation knight. And her bicorn can actually attack all enemies. So if this does enough, there might be some damage builds we can use that could potentially kill off certain things, or just in general, right? Her mitigation might be nice for anti-cleaving and things like that. But the reason I really want to talk about Shalltear being a just higher priority pick for most players over Albedo is just generally because you have other options for knights that have mitigation. And let's say she doesn't do quite as much damage as we're hoping for. I think units like Crimson Armin and ROL will just fit your comps just as well, if not better, than Albedo does, okay? We really have to see what she kind of brings to the table than the other knights, whereas Shalltear just already looks on paper to be very, very effective versus a lot of the current meta. So Albedo, once again, wait for the multipliers, but those of you that do need a knight, I think she's going to be very, very fun. I think she has potential to be amazing, but a lot of that really depends here. Now, one thing I want to say, guys, is I don't want to make too much of a call on any which direction, because if you guys remember on my Espa review, I actually underrated Karina, and she ended up being one of the strongest, if not the strongest, Espa collab characters. So there are a lot of similarities to draw between Albedo, mainly because of the artifact. But for those reasons, I wouldn't write her off just yet. Let's really just wait and make sure we can test her out against a lot of different scenarios to really make a judgment call. But I do think Shalltear just is a safe pick to invest a little bit more into, for those of you that are wondering. Now, her artifact here, guys, this is one that is HP scaling, does have a lot of similarities to Rocket Punch. It is an HP scaling kind of Uberi's Tooth, HP scaling Rocket Punch, where the other two are scaling off attack or scaling off defense. This is our first HP scaling, like additional damage artifact, and there's a lot of units that can make use of this that have a lot of health. So who knows? There's so many, when I was live streaming, so many people had awesome ideas on who we can use this on. And I think this is going to be good on her as well, just like Shalltear will be good with her Pipette Lance. But the reason I think we should want more copies of this, because if it does end up being stronger than Rocket Punch, and indeed that the Overlord Collab maybe doesn't come back next year, I know for myself and a lot of other players, I wanted more copies of Rocket Punch, and I ended up only having one that I bottled. I thought we might have another chance to get Espa again, so I could just pick up a second Rocket Punch later, but I made this mistake of maxing only one out. So if this ends up being a very nice artifact for a lot of different units, you're going to want at least 2 copies, and you want to keep them 2 separate, okay? Keep 2 copies of this separate. That way, if it ends up being extremely strong, you can have it on 2 different units, and you can slowly max them out with bottles and things like that, all right? So just remember, guys, the reason I'm talking this one up so much is because we have similar artifacts in the past that have ended up being insane. Who knows if this will be as strong, because HP has similar, HP has different weaknesses compared to things like Rocket Punch, where Rocket Punch is only weak to defense break. Typically, this could be very weak to injury, and injury is getting stronger and stronger. We just talked about it with Shalltear's kit, okay? And this kind of gets countered by that. But in general, I think this is going to be insane. It's our first artifact in 5 years of the game that does this exact HP scaling additional damage. So take note, all right? And that being said, guys, once again, let's wrap it all up. Shalltear #1 pick. However, Albedo's artifact 3F, I think, will be the #1 artifact to get. And the fact that this comes first, get 1 copy of Albedo. Try and get 1 copy extra of the artifact, as well as 1 copy via powder, if you can. If you guys are free to play, you might need to just cut your losses, only stay with 1. And then if you were like Shalltear, save the rest of the bookmarks and guarantee here as well. Remember, 605 bookmarks to pity. Make sure you set aside enough powder to get both artifacts. And then best of luck, guys, if you guys are going for imprints and all that. Hopefully that helps you guys out. I can't wait. I'm actually going to be out of town in Japan, so I might not be there. For those of you that tune into the live streams or expecting some videos, I'll be a little bit late on that. But thank you guys, as always, for watching. I'll catch you all when I get back. Peace out, y'all.